Hey, welcome to Commanding the Market. It's part of the Librarian of Alexandria channel, as I'm sure you're aware if you're watching this. I am joined by my co host, Mr. Trent, the man, the myth, the legend. Yes, you can only have one in play. Trent, thanks for joining me tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be doing this. This is something that we've been talking about doing for a while now, and
Yeah.
we're finally here, man. Tonight's the night. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So, for those of you who are curious what this show's about, there are a lot of different shows on the MTG Librarian, aka Librarian of Alexandria YouTube channel, from Commander gameplay to box openings. You name it, we do it, we play it, we enjoy it. But for the most part, we are all about EDH Commander here. So, this show, Commanding the Market, is going to take a look at the market, often on what's the newest set out and how that's going to respond, or our cards in the market will respond to these newer cards that are coming into play, and what cards in this new set we should consider for speculating for a long-term investment. If you're interested in speculation and if you're interested in Commander, you have come to the right place.
Woo! So
So
yeah, that's another thing we've been talking about for a long time, Hill, is the fact that people talk about speculation, they talk about Commander, but nobody realizes or puts two and two together that Commander drives a lot of the prices on cards,
as
much like Legacy, because it's an unrotating format.
Yeah. That non-rotating format, what drove me away years ago when I first, a little about me, I got into Magic in '94 during in the dark. And I left Magic the first time I left Magic. I made my exodus in Exodus. Um, Came back to it years later when I actually opened a game store. But I lost my train of thought slightly there. I apologize. Just a little about me was what I was going into, but ultimately what drove me away the first time from Magic was the competitive play. I got tired of the rotating competitive formats, and then the only one at that time that didn't rotate you couldn't buy into if you didn't have all the Power Nine and the like. So I grew disenfranchised, and when I found out about Commander, I fell in love with the format right away. I was like, it doesn't rotate. I can play with all the cards I love. Count me in. And I think that's been the driving force behind Commander for the past decade and why it's so popular. What
Sure,
about you?
it's definitely brought a lot of people, new people into the game. Brought a lot of people back, like yourself, and even like me. I mean, I'm kind of have a very similar history with the game. I, started around Odyssey blocks somewhere in there, and I played on the you know,
Mm-hmm.
PTQs and all that stuff, and I grinded, and I actually did fairly well. I mean, I have some top eights and stuff like that under my belt, but I actually have a junior super series win, if that means anything. But you know, uh, eventually it just became monotonous and just not fun anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that Commander's here, and we can, even during COVID, we can kind of come together and play over video chat and
Yeah,
have a
and
good
that's
time.
been a big thing, a big indicator in the market. This is something I've seen for the last couple of years. When I got back into Magic was Ixalan, and I saw how the market moved, in my opinion, more. I don't want to say consistently, but solidly on the basis of Commander than any other platform. There's too many shakeups too often, too fast in all the other formats. There'd be a rotation for some, and suddenly these cards that were $40 go to $4, and because they weren't viable in modern. Now we have Pioneer, so we have a little more viability for these standard cards rotating out, but more often than not, when they drop in value, they don't come back in value, back
Right,
up. But if they're viable in Commander now, they're pretty much always going to be viable in Commander. And if
right,
they're so good that they're a staple of that color, that should, we look at Demonic Tutor. When do you play Demonic Tutor? When you're
always.
playing black. And sometimes you might just play an extra, splash it in there and go with a partner commander because you want a Demonic Tutor. There are staples in the format, and these cards we look at and go, okay, these things are always going to play. And when a set comes out, you can look at the set and go, what has a potential to be a staple in the format? Early on, I looked at Growing Rights of Ixalan. When that set Ixalan was out, I spec'd into that. I saw, and I was buying them between the $5 and $6 range. Actually, less than that. I got my foils for $6.
Yeah, they were $1 or $2.
Yeah, and I was like, this is Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah,
with a very easy way to trigger the effect. When I saw Smothering Tithe, I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. So I scooped up a bunch of those at $3 because I was like, this is a staple. This is doing something White's needed to do since '93 and hasn't been able to, and now it can. This is a staple. So we here look at cards in each new coming set and decide if we think any of those have a potential to be a long-term investment or spec due to its long-term potential in Commander. So we're going to take a look at some cards today. We're going to also discuss how later on, we're going to discuss how the current pandemic in conjunction with the economic concerns and product saturation for Magic the Gathering with all these different sets coming out, how that could lead to some interesting specs and investment opportunities. But that's later in the show, so bear with us.
That's going to be a good one. I'm excited for that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a big topic, man. There's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, so yeah, we've got a new set coming out here on Monday.
It looks really good.
Well, I guess technically it's coming
Friday.
out on Friday. But Monday, our video, I think we're gonna
Yeah,
post
you'll be watching this. The set will have dropped a few days prior.
Yeah. So basically, let's just get into it. You know, we got Core Set 2021 coming out. And
so let's talk reprints first.
We want to try and spec on here and see what are going to be winners and some losers.
Yeah, let's look at maybe some reprints first, because there's definitely a lot of juicy reprints in this set, and quite a few of these are no-brainers to spec on. But what has the possible biggest upside? We're going to take a look at that first. So, what reprint specs have you got?
So, I mean, obviously the biggest upside, and you know, everybody's looking at Grim Tutor. I mean, Grim Tutor's fantastic, but that's not what we're here for. We're not here for, you know, stuff like Grim Tutor, who is only been printed once before and was $173, and now every Timmy and John down the street want to have their $25 Grim Tutor, and we can go on and on about that. That's not what we're here for. That's a great card. But Heroic Intervention, that is a card that it came out at 30 cents. You could buy them a dime a dozen.
Don't remind me. I wasn't playing during that point. I missed out on that one.
You could have as many as you wanted for $1. They were giving them away. They were throwing them at you just for walking in the Magic shop. Today it's at $18 before it got reprinted. I mean, we're talking about a card that sees play in over 15% of all EDH decks, according to EDH Rec. We're talking close to 29,000 decks run this card. Because quite simply, if you're playing Commander and you have green, it should probably be in the deck. The only time you might not is you are playing completely a creatureless deck. But if you're playing with green, you're probably not playing in a creatureless deck. Right.
So it's kind of a no-brainer. And currently, the card is sitting at, I believe, $6.52 and dropping. Yep. Now, I expect shortly after release, that's going to be the window in those first few weeks to pick up, as the market's going to get flooded with these cards. People are going to swoop in to pick them up while they are cheap. And I'm thinking if you can get it at all ever under $5, grab it up, grab it up, grab it up.
Yeah, I think there is a pretty good possibility. I don't know that we'll ever see the $18 mark again.
Probably not, unless they don't do another reprint for 5 or more years.
Yeah, it'll be a while before we see that, and then it'll have to not get reprinted for a while. But let's just say it, you know, that is the case. What's your short goal investment? I mean, you're looking at $5. You know, you could probably get it under $5 in a couple of weeks. So wait till then. Yep. But ultimately, I mean, you're looking at, in less than a year, it's probably going to get back up to 11 or 12.
Yeah, I
I
expect
mean,
to double
fairly
up
easily,
within a year or two at most.
which
I don't
kind
think
of,
it'll even take that long.
which kind of segues into our point that we're not really going to talk about on this show, which is the whole COVID and everything that's happening with that. But I mean, yeah, this is going to be an undersold, underopened product. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the odds are pretty good that that's going to be a fine reprint to spec on there.
Yeah. So any other reprints catch your eye? I mean, obviously Grim Tutor and Ugin Spirit Dragon are phenomenal reprints.
Yeah, they're
I
great.
think Ugin's the better of the two of the reprints. I think Grim Tutor's kind of the 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 worst of the best tutors in
Sure.
EDH. Like it's still no comparison for Demonic Tutor and several others. And part of the reason it commanded that high price point was because there was only the one in Portal of Far under opened set, and it's kind of comparable to the Imperial Recruiter in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. And you saw how the price crushed on that.
Oh,
In
sure.
fact, I think Imperial Recruiter sees more play in general than Grim Tutor does or did in other formats besides EDH, obviously, because, I mean, all you
Yeah.
got is your Legacy Vintage for that. Um, but I still think that Grim Tutor was a needed reprint, and
Oh,
the art
sure.
is
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, all the reprints are just pretty fire. In the rare and mythic slots, of course, you got some pretty okay ones, that we just have had very recently in the common, uncommon slot, but that's okay. The big mythics are just sweet. They're needed. They're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Are they speckable? Nah, I don't think so. They're gonna keep their value pretty close to where they are now.
Yeah. Now, I
Um,
personally am happy to see in the uncommon slot at reprint, um, Fierce Empath.
mhm.
Now it's a card. It's had a few. It's had a few reprints. Masters 25. The original version I think was Onslaught. It's had a few versions,
Scourge.
reprints. Scourge. However, I find I run out of this card when in EDH. I have 30 EDH decks, and generally, if I'm playing green, there's at least one creature I can tutor up with this card, and having
Hmm.
that in there lets me do it. And if I've got multiple, I can flicker this, whatever, and potentially get multiple tutors out of it on big creatures. At one point, I know the Masters 25 version was $3, and that's the most recent reprint of the card, barring, of course, M21. I'm not saying run out and buy all the Fierce Empaths you can. However, I will say if you plan to have multiple decks and think down the road you're going to want to use this card, I would at least get in while it is on the cheap side and get a handful of them so that when they hit that $1, $2 mark, you'll already have them. They're also a great thing to throw in addition, if you're going to do a trade with somebody, you need to sweeten the pot a little bit, you throw that in to get the price back up there to where it's an even trade.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's certainly a good uncommon to have around. I kind of tend to disagree with you that I don't think we're ever going to see the dollar days of that card again. Um, it's just, especially in a core set now. I mean, getting reprinted in M20, I mean, Masters 25 was, not as
As
significant
wide a
because of
print
just the
run.
cost of the packs.
Yeah, that too.
But being reprinted in 2021, there's going to be tons of them. And I don't know that we're ever going to see a dollar on that card, but certainly a good commander card nonetheless, that is run all the time. I don't know if you looked up how many decks it's run in
I
EDH.
haven't, but that's a good question.
Let's see here.
So it is run in 11,500 decks.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's running a lot of decks.
yeah, so that's about what, 6% of decks or so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty good spread for an uncommon. Not
Yeah.
pretty good. Um, so so did you have any long shot specs on things that maybe you know maybe somebody may have not thought about, something that's not just bam right in your face, something that maybe could take a while to come up to snuff? if you will?
So I've got a couple. My concern is they're a little niche. Like
Hmm.
certain, at least one of them's only certain decks are going to want to run this. However, those that will want it are fairly popular commanders, and this is going to be an automatic include in those. And it's something that lets you go infinite and combo with relatively little effort. And that's
Yeah.
that first one. That's Bossry's Lieutenant.
Hmm.
Now, the thing I like about this card, the thing that caught my eye when I first read it, was specifically that it does not specify non-token in the effect. So let me, for those of you who aren't familiar with the card, it is a 3/4 for a white and 3, and it comes into play. You put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, and it can even be Basri's Lieutenant. It has vigilance and protection from multicolor. So off the get-go, just on its own, this thing can come in as a 4/5 for 4 with vigilance and protection from multicolored, which is actually pretty good in Commander in and of itself. But that's not really why you want to play it. Why you want to play it is for its last ability. Whenever Basri's Lieutenant or another creature, note creature you control, dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. So if you combine this with something like Cathar's Crusade, or Grumgully in a bizarre teamer deck, or not teamer, but Naya deck, you have the ability to go infinite with things like Phyrexian Altar for infinite mana, or Altar of Dementia, and completely mill out your opponents. All you need is just one other single creature to start the chain. This easily slots into decks like Gave, Guru of Spores, Rayhan, Last of the Abzan, which is a partner card, which is often going to be partnered with something else, but will work off those +1/+1 counter sub-themes. Atraxa, Heliod the Sun-Crowned, anything that's a +1/+1 counter deck. Now, currently, he's a knight, so keep in mind, he can slot into a lot of knight decks quite easily as well. Now,
And humans too. I mean, there's there's some pretty notable humans that like +1/+1 counters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, I could see that. Well, possibly in Winota. I didn't
Sure.
consider. I don't know how Winota are running +1/+1 counter sub themes, but I could see that being there. A lot of, as you said, a lot of humans do that.
Sure.
So yeah, I think now it's a long shot because currently the card's going for about $1. I would not buy into it at $1. I would wait for this thing to drop, and if it drops down, I think around the sub 50 cent mark, you might want to pick up a few of these. If nothing else, to have them if you didn't already have them, because odds are at some point you're going to want to build around a +1/+1 sub theme or theme in a deck, and you're going to want this card in there. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. So a card that I had kind of thought about, and you and I had discussed a little bit, was Rada, Heart of the Killed. I mean, honestly, what a great. It's first of all, it's going to be a good commander, and I know that we don't like to spec on things that are going to be commanders, but even if it is a commander in some decks, I think it still slots into, I mean, really any deck that's playing green and red and a combination of the two colors.
Yeah, I think Landfall, is going to want to play this. Anything Landfall will.
Landfall.
Will
I mean,
this.
it sits right beside Oracle Moldiah. It sits right beside the Courser Crucifix.
Yeah.
I mean, any of those cards that help you play lands off the top of your deck to get to your bulk of your deck and what you're trying to do is just going to be fantastic. And let's not walk past that second ability that he has, the +X for the amount of lands. In Commander, you have so many lands in play. I don't know. It just seems like a good card. And, my thought on it was, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, well, I'm sure at release that card's going to be about $5. It's a legendary. It's got a good ability. $1.46 right now.
Yeah, its highest point was what, like 350?
Yeah, its highest point was 350 on release on spoil, but I mean, even still,
no, I agree. I think even at 350, that's kind of low when you compare that it has an ability that is very similar to other cards that command a much higher price point and have for the longest time.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you. I think that's a very good spec. And I don't even think that's much of a long shot.
Yeah, it may not be a long shot, but
the only thing it has going against it, in my opinion, is the red in there. But you know
hate
me.
red, so
yeah, I do have a thing against red, but I also know that it is, the second weakest color in Commander, and the fact that this is a 2-color card, not a single, it means it can't slot quite as easily as, say, that those other ones, the Druid of Elysian Grove, I think he's called, or Courser of Crufix and the like. So it makes it slightly more niche. However, most landfall decks I've found tend to want to have red in them. You have your Jund landfall decks. I think it's an automatic include in any of those.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see here. I know you mentioned you had another one here.
I do have another long shot. Now this one I don't even think is really a long shot spec. I don't think it's really all that speculable. I don't think you can truly. I don't think it's going to be, unfortunately, probably too niche because simply because it has to come into play at the right time, or it's not going to be very good. But there are certain decks that are going to absolutely love this card, and most of them are going to be aristocrat style decks, which are very popular. And the card I'm talking about is the Idol of Endurance. So what Idol of Endurance does, it's a 3-drop, a 2 and a white, comes into play. Exile all creature cards from your graveyard with CMC 3 or less. Now, a lot of people see that, and then whenever the Idol leaves play, this is the beauty, all those cards that are exiled with it go back to the graveyard. So you're not really losing anything here. A lot of people, I think, are worried that, you get blown out if it gets removed. No, if it leaves play for any reason, all those cards are going back to your yard. Now, what it does, it lets you, for 1 and a colors, tap it and play for free any card exiled with the Idol of Endurance. So this lets you recur things like your Plague Crafters, recur things like Kami of False Hopes, if maybe you've got the Spore Frog style thing going on where you'd want to keep fogging. Now, it's only going to let you recur it the one time, because eventually after you've played it, you can't replay it when it goes to the yard unless you can replay the idol. And that's, I think, if they had not put that stipulation in of that effect, it probably would be busted, just straight up busted. Now, any deck that can recur or bounce the idol, though, that's when it can get kind of gross. So I find that even if you can't recur it, if you just get the one extra shot out of all of these utility small creatures, for example, I have a Loris deck that runs low to the ground. It doesn't have to, but it prefers to. This gives me a chance to recur multiple items a turn using Loris and the idol, because I can pop something off from Loris, use, say, Plague Crafter, let Plague Crafter go to the yard. So now I have targets down the road, or another 2-drop or 1-drop I have in play, and now I can recur also with Loris. And it's kind of like having on a stick a creature-only Sun Titan.
Yeah.
And currently the card is sitting at 58 cents, and I expect it to continue to go down unless somebody finds a way in Standard or Pioneer to break it, which I'm not expecting. It may happen. I don't know. But if that does not occur...
Probably more likely in Pioneer for sure, which is kind of a dying format right now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the formats outside of Commander are kind of struggling right now.
True. Another episode.
Yeah. So I got a spec I want to talk to you about. You got another long shot before we go on, or no?
So I do have one honorable mention long shot, and I was talking to my buddy Patrick, who you know pretty well. He lives in Arizona now, unfortunately, but good for him though. He's making some do with his life. But I was laughing at him because I was kind of going down the list and telling him some cards that I had picked out for the show, and just wanted to see what his thoughts were about them and just kind of bounce off of him a little bit and get some ideas. And, I get down the list and I get to the artifact, the tome artifact. I'm thinking about including this. And he's like, yeah, it's a good card. I played with it in limited. And he's like, but wait a minute, we just went over like a bunch of gold cards. You didn't you didn't talk about Niambi. And I'm like, Niambi? What are you talking about, Niambi? And he goes, I'm telling you, Niambi is going to be the biggest thing ever. It's going to blow up. It just does it all, Trent. And I'm just like, Patrick, you're absolutely insane. I have no idea what you see in this card. And for those that don't know, it's a 2/1 blue and a white flash legendary human cleric. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you can return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, you gain life equal to that creature's converted mana cost. 1, a white and a blue, tap, discard a legendary card, draw 2 cards. So I'm thinking to myself, whoop-de-doo. I mean, there's a million other cards that do this. And, sure, when do I ever want to discard a legendary card that's probably pretty powerful to draw 2 randos? When do you ever want to do that? Hardly ever, right? I mean,
unfortunately,
like, no,
I think if her
about it.
colors were different, it would be really good in the
Yeah.
oh, I forgot his name, the 3-drop that reduces the cost of legends and lets you exile legends from the yard to replay legends from the yard.
Yeah. Kethis.
Kethis, thank you.
Yeah. So
I think if the colors were there, that would be great, but it's the wrong colors for that.
So that's exactly my argument to him. And his argument back to me is, but think about it. It's a 2-mana commander, And I was like, yeah, well, commanders, the point of the show is we're trying to speculate, and we're talking about the market and what we're trying to make some money on here. And he goes, yeah, but I don't know. I still disagree with you, Trent. It's going to be great. I said, all right, I'll tell you what. So I made a bet with him. I said, you know what? They're currently 80 cents right now. You buy 15 of them, and in 2.5 years, I'll buy all 15 of them from you. How about that? If they're over $3 a piece.
So we have a wager going on this one.
Yeah,
now,
so we have a little
I
wager
will admit,
going on,
I think there is something to Niambi. I don't know if she's a great spec. There is some possibilities there, just because the ability to bounce your own creatures so that you can recast them for value for ETB triggers isn't bad. My only concern, I think I would have absolutely loved this card if it didn't have the stipulation of another creature. If she could bounce herself, this card would have been phenomenal. It would have been a white main lion plus.
Oh yeah.
Dream Stealer, Dream Stalker plus your ability to bounce itself repeatedly and recur this effect.
Yeah,
it would have been great.
Sick.
Unfortunately, that stipulation I think may hurt it.
Yeah.
Overall.
I agree.
So I'd like to talk about a card. This is my personal favorite from the set. This is the card outside of some reprints, because there's a couple reprints I'm stoked about. Heroic Intervention being one of those, Ugin the other. I'm really stoked about Sublime Epiphany.
Oh man, I am too.
This card I was looking at a few days ago. Actually, about a week ago, when we were first sitting down, coming up with notes on thinking what we want to do on this show. And I was like, I think the best spec in my head was Sublime Epiphany. I look, and I was like, it's like $2.50 at the time. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of these. I didn't yet, though. I was going to wait for release. Well, it's already up to $340, I think, in like 6 days. It's gone up 40%.
And climbing.
Now, when I look at this card, I compare it when I was deciding whether I thought this was a good card or not. I compared it to some other highly played cards in Commander. Mystic Confluence, for example, which I think this card, Sublime Epiphany, is strictly better. But by comparison, it came out in a relatively small print run in Commander 2015, and it reached a high point of $15 prior to its reprint in Battle Bond, which itself, that reprint saw a high of $850. It was reprinted again in Mystery Boosters, which saw a high of, unfortunately at that point, only $278. But that's a total of 3 printings of Mystic Confluence. And we saw it took a while for that 15 to finally get down. This card is better than that. The other card by comparison, I'm sure you're quite familiar with it, Trent.
Oh, yes.
Cryptic Command.
Maybe my favorite card in all of Magic. I don't know. Maybe.
It's
close.
Way up there.
Yeah.
And this card's known for kind of blowing out games. The value you get off this card. Now, one of the sometimes unsung abilities of it is the ability to tap down your opponent's creatures.
Right.
That's pretty big. However, that's because it allows for a blowout, right? Well, Sublime Epiphany allows for a blowout in multiple ways.
On multiple targets.
On multiple targets. The value you get from this, while yes, it costs 2 more mana than Cryptic Command, it also is more splashable because it's not trip blue, it's double blue.
Easier to cast than Cryptic, in my opinion. I mean,
this card, I wish I'd pre-bought, if you will, because nobody had copies at the time yet on TCG, but they were anticipating owning them for sale. I wish I'd bought in when it was at the 250 mark. I fear that by the time you guys are watching this, it will already be over $4 is my fear. Now, there's a hope. A lot of times, right when a set releases, those prices tank because there's a flood of cards to the market. So I'm going to anticipate that and hope for that. And I'm going to be looking in the next week or two to be buying in at a low. And at this point, I think anything under $3 is a steal on this card.
Yeah. I think, honestly, we're probably doing ourselves a disservice to all of our viewers by putting this out on Monday. Because I'm with you, man. I don't know. I think we are at bottom right now.
I fear we are.
It's just too good. Now, hopefully, again, COVID and everything that's happening with that, people have less I say people have less access, but they just, opened up Arena for Mac now. So, me and Pat can play on, Arena now.
It took them long enough, didn't it?
Yeah, no kidding. Which, interestingly enough, I mean, what do you think? So kind of way off topic here, but, I mean, do you think that that's a sign that we're about to get some mobile Arena? Are all Magic players just now going to be in their phones constantly and never to look up to the world again?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest. Like, I was in the beta testing, 2 years back for Arena, and I enjoyed it at first, but actually this was before. Actually, I was doing this just after Ixalan, I believe it was, because I was just getting back into Magic at that point, and I wanted to play but couldn't often go out to play, so I played Arena then. But I'll be honest, after I started going to the local game stores and playing with people and playing Commander, I just dropped off Arena entirely, because for me the only formats I enjoy are limited, which I can do on Arena and have considered, but I really like the feel of the cards in my hand. I do
too, man. I mean, you can't replace that, but right now
Commander and limited are the only things I play. So
yeah, I'm with you. I don't play Constructed really at all. And I'll say that Arena has gotten drastically better since you've been on it. As far, I mean, you have player-to-player drafts now.
Oh, really? So it's not just bots.
It's not bots. You can play 8-player drafts, live players, and it's pretty sweet, man. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It's scary good, actually. I kind of hate the fact that it's so good because I do love me some people in the flesh,
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. So we were talking about some cards that were in the uncommon slot that a lot of people, when they're talking about speccing, nobody really talks about the uncommons, the $2, the $3 uncommons.
Those uncommonly good specs.
Yeah, the uncommonly good specs.
I started noticing these, like, in general, right around, because I also didn't do it. I was like, they're uncommons. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Until I started looking, beginning in Guilds of Ravnica. And Guilds and Ravnica Allegiance, I thought were phenomenal because there was, in the uncommon slot, uncommons that were fetching values of $1 to $3. And I was like, you can crack an uncommon and a crap rare and still make back your money on the booster, which is pretty phenomenal. And a lot of these uncommons, not all of them, but a lot of them got to that dollar value because of Commander. Things like Wilderness Reclamation, for example. And looking back, I bought a couple Wilderness Reclamations, but now I'm like, I wish when they were, 25, 50 cents, I'd bought in on a couple dozen, because that's the sort of card I want to run in most decks that I run green in.
Mm-hmm.
Now from this set, there's a couple I was looking at.
So I've got 3 specifically, and I think, in my opinion, the best and easiest one to take advantage of and can fit into the most possible decks is probably Witch's Cauldron. I mean, it's a single black artifact, 1 and a black, tap it, sack a creature, you gain 1 life, draw a card. I mean,
I like it. My problem with
every commander deck I have that runs black.
My one problem, because I do think it's good, I really do. My one concern with it is it costs mana, and you have to tap it. And I have to ask myself, like, when I'm building the 99 in any like Aristocrat style deck where I want to sacrifice, I have to just, is this idea of Magical Christmas Land that I'm always going to have that mana available. I'm always going to be able to use that when I want to. So I want my sack outlets, though, because I know that that's not always going to be the case, to be free. I need those sack outlets to be free whenever possible. Now, the fact that it lets you draw a card means it can possibly slot into a different position in your deck, which could be one of card draw.
Mm-hmm.
So when building a deck around and considering this, I think it is a very viable option, but you have to realize which slot is it actually filling. Is it more filling your sack outlet or your card draw? So I would have to put it in the card draw side and
of course,
backup sack outlet for a single target, but primarily as a card draw engine. And now in an Aristocrat style deck, that is a sweet card draw engine.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I do have a couple more. So Griffin Airy, it's a 1 and a white enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, create a 2/2 white Griffin creature with flying.
Solid in any life gain deck.
That's pretty strong. Currently 25 cents. We could be talking about $1 uncommon here. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's strong.
I think I got a better one for you, though.
Oh, do you? Okay, let's hear it.
All right. So, Garrick's Uprising. This card in just the past week has seen a 30% increase. Now, it's comparable to a very often played card in Commander called Elemental Bond. Now, Garrick's Uprising is a 3-cost enchantment that when it enters the battlefield, if you can control a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. Baseline, it gives all creatures you control trample. And then whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card. That's a lot to pack onto a 3-mana enchantment.
Yeah.
And then you have other cards that see a lot of play, like Elemental Bond, which costs the same mana and triggers only on 3 or greater power, but it doesn't have all the other abilities. And then another very similar one, this is one I spec'd on as well from Ravnica Allegiance, Guardian Project, which at release was a low of 64 cents and now goes for $6 and has become a Commander staple in green for card draw. So Guardian Project will trigger on basically every creature you cast, period, because it's EDH and everything is, unique in name. Now, Garrick's Uprising, if you're playing in any deck that runs any kind of big beat screen deck, you're going to want this. So I personally think Garrick's Uprising is a great spec, and I also think that if you can get on the alternate art foil version, that's the one you really want to get. But be forewarned, it's already going for $6. Look to see if after release, if possibly that price drops down below the $4 mark, scoop those up, because players will want those for Commander, and they're going to want those pimped out versions more so than any other. However, getting in on any of these at a low price point, watch for that. I highly recommend Garrick's Uprising.
Yeah.
What else you got?
That's a good one. The only other one I found that, was doing anything for me was the Indulging Patron. I think that's the name of it. I'm sorry. Indulging Patrician 1, a white and a black, Vampire Noble Flying Lifelink, 1/4 at the beginning of your end step. If you gain 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. Man,
That's a fun one.
that's
That slots into Edgar Markov. That slots right in there.
Yeah, these life gain decks are getting a ton from this set, man.
Yeah, with
Wow.
Veto.
Just you got Veto, which is just another Sanguine Bond. I mean,
A Sanguine Bond that can sit in your command zone. And we're talking about a color that's got a lot of cards that let you tutor things. So you can literally just do basically a 1-card combo with your commander, and you have multiple ways to tutor that card up. Then you just play any freaking card that will gain you a single life and win the game.
Yeah, it's just not right.
I fear the Veto decks to come in the coming days.
I do too. I'm glad our play group has decided to kind of rein back the power level a little bit, because oh my gosh, that's just that's not going to be fun to play against for sure.
No. Now I have one other uncommonly good spec here, and I've been this one I was reluctant to talk about because I'm kind of on the fence, but I think that for a lot of players that need this effect in their play group, they're really going to want this, and the drawback on it isn't going to feel bad, and that's Angelic Ascension. Similar to Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshares, it's another instant for, in this case, 1 and a white that lets you exile target creature or planeswalker, and its controller creates a 4/4 angel creature token with flying.
Yep.
Now, this has an interesting, just like all those other cards, Swords to Plowshares, I've many a time cast on my own creature to avoid death. I have Path to Exile my own creature to fix my mana base. So in the same manner, Angelic Ascension not only can be used offensively, but can also be used defensively. Perhaps you're playing with in a deck where your Planeswalker is out there and he's about to just get owned on an attack step by creatures you can't block. So you instead decide, well, if he's going to go, I might as well take your guys with them, and you exile your own creature, drop a 4/4 in, and kill their attacking creature. Surprise, and you're still sitting on a 4/4 angel. You lost essentially nothing in that other than the ability to recur that Planeswalker, which you may or may not have had the ability in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good pick. What is Angelic Ascension?
It is currently sitting at a low of 46 cents. It has been dropping. It's had its highest price was $1. This card, I have a feeling, will see significant commander play, especially when cards like Path to Exile are already commanding the $5+ mark, and Swords is already at several dollars, and it's been reprinted to oblivion. It's at this point it's like Soul Ring. They keep reprinting it, but it doesn't really crush the value any because it's such a staple. So I feel this is a good alternative or addition to those others.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was one I was looking at too. But for the same reasons you had, you have other possibilities. And how many slots are you running in your deck for spot removal?
I think the addition of being able to hit a Planeswalker really pushes this card.
It does. And again, you're right. It's going to be kind of a specific to your play group choice as a slot for your deck. But yeah, I mean, if it picks up any kind of steam, watch out, I think it could get to the $1-2 mark, I think.
Let me ask you this. Do you more fear giving your opponent a land of their choice, a basic land of their choice, or a 4/4 angel in Commander? Which would you rather give them?
A 4/4 angel.
Same. My life total's so high, and I can probably deal with that angel a lot more easily than the fact that I just fixed your mana base and ramped you, and now you might just go off a turn earlier than you would have otherwise. Yeah. So I in many ways feel this is almost better than Path to Exile. The fact that it costs 2 keeps it from going over that level, but the versatility on this card, it makes it pretty strong, and I'm feeling pretty hopeful for this card in the long term.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't have very much else. I mean, this set is going to be pretty good in the long run. I think on the whole, we've got so many great reprints. We've got so many options for Commander. We've got I mean, we've got a new cryptic command, for God's
Yeah.
sakes. We've got a new cryptic command. So what can't go wrong? And you know,
Mm-hmm.
I got too excited there. You
I
know,
noticed. You're knocking the camera all over the place.
but you know, I'm pretty excited for Core 2021, and
Yeah.
I'm
This
extra
year.
excited to see what happens with our picks here, and
Yeah.
have a little, you know,
Well, down the
friendly.
road, we'll have to have a review video where we go over our specs and see what worked and what didn't. Because I'll be honest, I've had a lot that have worked out really well, and I've definitely had some duds.
Oh yeah.
Or the spark lured me in, and I went hook, line, and sinker in on a bunch of stuff, and most of them did not pan out.
Yeah. Well, you know, the idea is to make sure that let me fix my webcam here a little bit. Sorry, I moved it. But goodness. Okay. But anyway, so yeah, the one thing you're trying to do in speccing is make sure that you don't want to buy into cards that are, you know, $40-$50.
No,
that's not the point of speccing. If you want a $40 or $50 card, go buy the $40 or $50 card, and you're not trying to make your money back on it. You're not, well, hoping to anyway. You know, you try to mitigate your losses by waiting until something is, you know, under $2. So yeah, if you lose out, it's $2. You know, it's not 40.
Well, I mean, the
right?
payoff, like, for example, and here's a story I'm going to borrow from another content creator, who, you know what, screw it, shout out to Rudy, because I actually enjoy alpha investments. I know a lot of people don't, but I like Rudy's. Rudy's got some good points. He misses the mark sometimes, but, you know, don't we all? Somebody wrote a story recently to him about how they had specced years ago into Ugin and bought a ton of them at, you know, $40 to $50 a pop. We're talking of like $5 to $10 grand investment in just that single card. And then when the word of the reprint came out, he was like, there goes my savings. What do I do? Well, you don't do that. You don't invest on a high-end card like that has a potential for reprint. If you're going to invest on something that you want to make money on, invest on something that is likely an unforeseen gem and buy it on the low. And that's what we're trying to give you guys a heads up on what we think are viable possibilities for long-term growth for you in speculating in current day non-reserve list Magic cards.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing we are going to get to is, you know, we're not just going to, I don't want to just review sets. You know, that's not what we're here to do. This set happens to be coming out. So, you know, we're going to talk about it. But, you know, I think ultimately what we're going to potentially get into is trying to find some of those gems, because Commander is the last unsolved format, guys.
Yeah.
There are still cards out there that have not been discovered. Decks have not been built around them, or been tried into different decks. So, you know, there's a lot of possibilities, and we were just discussing one the other day, which I'll kind of give a little teaser here for. But you know, if you're watching this video on Monday, watch out, because we're gonna crash the market, guys, with this one. This is a ding 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 hot take. But Feyburl Elder. I mean,
yeah.
How is this card, like, you know, it was in Throne of Eldraine, and it's basically been relegated to just a regular bulk rare at, like, what's
it's
it
like
at right now?
$2, I think. I'll find out here for you.
Yeah, and honestly, I was shocked that it was $2.
Oh, okay. I'd like to point out, it has in the last month jumped 150%.
Yeah. See, and you know,
it is currently at 3. Back in late May, it was $1.50.
I think we talked about this maybe 3 weeks ago. I had mentioned that card, or
and then,
maybe 2 weeks ago.
April $100. Yeah. This is when I know, and I meant to spec on this one actually, because this was my second most excited for from Throne of Eldraine. I love Throne of Eldraine. The one I was most impressed with, and this is before we even knew what food was Oko, because I was like, that's a plus ability that is a Beast Within. On a plus ability on a Planeswalker that already comes in with a ton of loyalty for 3 mana. I was like, this thing's ridiculous. So when people were like, it's getting banned because it's too good, I was like, no crap, it's too good. I just pray it doesn't get banned in Commander because I still play mine there. It's the only place I care to play it and can play it for that matter. So
it's not completely broken in Commander. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's still fantastic.
Yeah. Fabro Elder, however, was the one I was second most excited about because it's essentially Bloom Tender. It costs 1 more mana, but you're getting a better body out of it. And if you're playing within the colors green and white, this is a card you're going to want to run. If you're 3 color or more, I should say. If you're 2 color, it may or may not make the cut depending on whether or not you need mana ramp on a dork on a 2-drop. In a 2 color, it may or may not be worth it. But anything 3 color or more, this thing taps for 3 colors potentially. If you're 4 color 4, 5 color 5,
as a 3-drop.
And it's a 3-drop, and it'll be a 2/2 at worst, or 3/3, 4/4, or 5/5. And in case you weren't aware, any mana dork that can tap for 3 or more mana has a really quirky ability to go infinite really, really easily.
Yep.
So this card, the fact that it took this long to start, I mean, it sat at $1 for what, nearly a year?
Yeah.
And it is finally on the move.
Yeah.
I'm sad we didn't move on those when we talked about it a few weeks ago because I was like, I need to spec on that. Because at the time it was $2. You did? Good job. Good job.
I bought 15 of them.
Nice.
I already had like 10 or something. Plus, I think I've got like a foil full art Hooky Duke special one, whatever, from the collector packs. And I just opened a ton of Throne of Eldraine, and I happened to hit that card a lot.
I think I only ended up with 2 of them.
Bought some more because, what deck that's running green and white in Commander are you not going to slot this into, even if it is just green-white? At worst, it's a 3-drop that taps for 2 mana with an extra ability. So we're talking about a better mirror. What was reprinted in Core 21? Mirror.
Not Servitor. Mirror. I forgot the name.
Of course, I'm blanking.
But
here.
he
mirror,
taps for
Palladium
the 2 colors.
Mirror.
Yeah, Palladium Mirror.
Yeah, at worst, in a green-white only deck, it's a better Palladium Mirror. And Palladium Mirror is fantastic.
Any of those dorks that tap for 2, I tend to like. And this has a better body than I think all of those by nature that it's 2 color.
Yeah, it does. But that's just some insight into, how we kind of started this whole idea of this show here. Hell is, we're talking about it, and you were like, well, Trent, give me an example. What the hell are you talking about? And I was like, well, Fabro Elder for that, for one, but so that's just a little icing cherry on top for those of you getting in on the ground level with us, and hopefully that you guys can go out and spec on that card too, and we can all win together. That is my hopes for this, is that we can all win together, man, because isn't that what Magic's about, is winning together?
Well, usually only one player wins, but in this there can be multiple winners. So look at that. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Now,
but we all win.
Please note, we are in no way professionals regarding investment. These are just our own over the years as we've been investing and considering options for specking. We're just kind of sharing what we've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and hopefully you can take away and make your own wise decisions. Again, I recommend, and part of the reason we're putting this out after the release, partly it's a timing issue, but partly also we want to avoid anyone watching this and going, oh, I've got to buy this really fast, and potentially buying in when prices are traditionally at their highest.
Yeah.
Is pre the actual release. So when you want to look for these is the couple weeks following. Now, a couple of these, unfortunately, like we mentioned, Sublime Epiphany, among others, may continue to hike. You need to keep your eye on that daily after the set releases to find out if you should pull the trigger. Again, if you can get in on this card under $5, you're probably going to be happy with your decision for a long time to come.
I know I will be.
Well,
Well,
we appreciate you joining us. We this went a little longer than I think we first anticipated. We're going to have another one coming shortly. That's where we are discussing how the market could be affected long term by this COVID-19 pandemic, the economic crises in our nation and the world, and of course, WotC deciding to just go full throttle in creating some of the best product we've seen ever, possibly.
a long time.
I mean, I'm
It's been a
hard pressed to say
long
we've
time.
seen better, and at least not since I've gotten back into Magic, and just not just the quality, but the quantity. We're talking Ikoria a month and a half later, M21 2 weeks later, Jumpstart a few weeks later, Double Masters, and then I think we have a special green commander base type thing coming out.
Second commander set coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have the Commander Legend set coming out, and of course Zendikar. Like, that was never a popular place to go to. So yeah, all this year, and I'm betting there's also going to be some sort of Christmas special item as well.
Mm-hmm.
All this while we're in a pandemic. All this while a lot of people are unable to work. Yeah. So what's that going to mean long term for the market and these products? We're going to discuss that next time. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
I'm excited for it.
Trent. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you. And, I really appreciate you putting this up on your channel and taking the time out of your busy schedule to edit and shoot and, just talk about everything. And
it's a labor of love.
I'm excited. I'm excited for what's going to come with this channel and this show. So until next time, man, I'll be seeing you around the corner, I guess. And to everybody out there, command the market.
And y'all, be sure, if you like this content, let us know. Comment below, hit the like, subscribe to the channel, and check out our other content. And until next time, continue commanding the market.